Hello, everyone, and welcome to another session of Expert Insights Live. Uh, I've got Greg with me here today. Hi, Greg. Let's just check if we are not alone. So, if anyone can see us, just so that we're not speaking out randomly to just each other, and there's no one. If y'all can just confirm that y'all can hear us, that would be great. So, before we get started, we will at least know that there is someone out there listening to us. Let's just wait a couple of minutes at the most, and then we can get started. Yeah, there.
Somebody's out there.
There is somebody out there. Yes, on YouTube, we've someone's read the ticker very, very quickly. We're on YouTube, no? But okay. Well, at least people on YouTube can see us, so that's a good sign. Hi, Marek. Hi, Swapna. Yeah. Thanks everyone for confirming. So Greg, why not just start with, not that you need an introduction, but why not introduce yourself just so that people know who you are?
Yeah, so I'm Greg Deckler. I've basically I write books on Power BI. I actually it has nothing to do with my job. Actually, I'm actually a vice president at a global consulting services firm. But Power BI is my hobby. I've been using it, at work for my own purposes for since it was before it was called Power BI, really. So even with the Excel when it was the Power Tools that were built into Excel in that. So.
Perfect.
Yep.
Thanks a lot, Greg, for introducing yourself. Oh, people on LinkedIn can see us as well. Thanks, Andreas, for confirming. And sound is totally awesome. Okay, great. So that at least people can hear us. So there's no issue on sound then. Perfect. So anyone and everyone, if you all have any queries, please feel free to pop them in the chat. And just like I'm posting up comments over here, I'll post your queries directly uh, in front of here, and then Greg will take over and he will answer your queries for you. So while we're waiting for people to ask their queries, Greg, I've got a lot of them for you. Why not start with the most basic question, that how do you recommend beginners approach Power BI without feeling overwhelmed?
Yeah, so I mean, I have probably a different opinion on this than maybe a lot of people, but you know, one, start small, right? I mean, that's the classic thing, and just start small with something that is important to you. The way I started was I would literally get this CSV file that I would have to put into Excel and do all this data transformation on it to get some report numbers about like utilization or what was going on within my consulting practice. And so with Power BI and the Power Tools in Excel, I was able to automate that. And that's really where I started. I was able to automate those data transformations, and it made my job a lot easier. Um, don't get too wrapped up with all of the best practices that are out there. There's a ton
Hmm.
of people out there spouting best practices about star schemas and no calculated columns in DAX, all this other stuff. Just ignore all that. When you're getting started, all of that advice and best practices are for like these enterprise level data warehouse kind of things with these, billions of rows and everything. But if you're starting small and you've got, 5,000 rows, all of that is a nonsense and it just overcomplicates everything. So ignore it and just do what works for you and what works in your situation. That'd be my advice to keep from getting overwhelmed, because I mean there's enough people like out there spouting all this best practice stuff and this is the right way and this is the wrong way. Most of it doesn't matter at the level of when you're getting started. That's what I'll say.
Thanks for that, Greg. And while we're still waiting for people to ask more of their queries, uh, one of the major reasons why we've gathered over here is to talk about your latest book, which is Learn Microsoft Power BI. And the book is currently in its third edition. So, can you just tell us what's new in the third edition of this book?
Yeah, the third edition, it's been completely overhauled from the second edition to make sure, because that I think Learn Power BI second edition was like 2 or 3 years ago, and with monthly updates to
Mm.
Power BI, a lot's changed in that amount of time. So it's been completely updated to make sure that it adheres to all the latest, ways that Power BI desktop has changed. And then it's in color, which I think is really exciting. That's I think that was probably one of the biggest complaints with the book on Amazon reviews is like, this should be in color. So now it is. So I'm excited about that. And then the other big thing is obviously covering Copilot and Fabric within this book, which was really fun to try to work into the story. Because the story is a big element of this book, I think, that sets it apart from a lot of other books in this space. Is the overall story behind it is, Pam is, creating this, is tasked with creating this report, and, it tells that story. So it tells the why, and, why is this report being built, which is a very important thing. Like, not only just, and that's why I think this book, like Learn Power BI, is done well, because it speaks to both two audiences. The people that just want to sit down and say, here's the features and functionality, and here's how I do it. But then there's the other piece of it, which is, well, why is this report being created in the first place, and how do I go about collecting requirements about the report? And then, so when I was able to build the Fabric chapter in, it's like Pam, the business person, has created this report, but now it's so valuable to the company that they need to, put it into production, if you will. And so that's what the Fabric chapter is all about. Is, okay, now Pam hands this report over to the IT folks, and they go and they re-engineer it and put it into production to make it available for the entire company, which is exactly how this stuff works in real life a lot of times. So it was fun to do that.
Yeah. Right. So am I right in assuming, because you mentioned Pam a couple of times, am I right in assuming that you've got a fictional character in the book called Pam, and we are learning through Pam's perspective about what the queries are, and Pam is just mocking us basically, like she's just replacing us in the book. Is that what's happening in the book?
Right. Yeah. And Pam is
Interesting.
not just fictional. So the utilization
Oh,
report is actually a real thing that was developed, and Pam was tasked with it, and then I worked with Pam to create that report for the business I worked for at the time. So it's actually a real life scenario in terms of, the
oh,
real calculation. It's been, we developed that utilization not because of unlimited PTO, although, like is what's said in the book, although my company did implement unlimited PTO later on, right? So it was all this, it's all these real life scenarios that are woven together into this story, and to make it realistic, and because there's a lot of truth behind the story. All right, so it's just been woven together a little bit neatly, different than how it actually happened in real life. So, but it's everything. There is really a Pam. There really is a Mike. There really is a Paul. Right, in the Fabric, when Paul is the IT guy, these are all people that I've worked with and still work with. So
amazing. So you've taken a literal real world case scenario and you've woven it into the chapters. Amazing.
yep, yeah,
So
it was fun to
while we're
do.
talking, sorry, go on.
Go ahead. No, sorry. There's somebody that's asking how I
No, no, go on, go on.
manage my time between
Yes,
VP role and consulting and writing books and everything. It's
yes,
because
I was just going to pop that up.
yeah, it's because I have no life.
Right.
I spent countless weekends, sitting in front of my computer on a Saturday, just writing a chapter. And that's how I kind of write. Writing to me, like I get in focused and in the zone, and I'll just start at like 10 a.m. in the morning, and I'll sit down in front of the computer and I'll write a chapter. Right? And it's just, and then on Sunday I'll go and review the chapter, make any edits and that sort of stuff, and that chapter is out the door. But I've lost an entire weekend. So yeah, it got really crazy when I was writing Learn Power BI second edition. At the same time, I was writing DAX for Humans at the same time, and so it was like I had zero life at all. Almost every spare moment was writing those books. In addition to doing my, because I have my day job, and then that's what I would do in my evenings and my weekends and things like that, would be writing books and things. So yeah, it was. I was happy to take a break this past month or so, but now I've let you guys know that I'm ready to start mastering Power BI's third edition. So whenever you guys want to spin that project up, let me know, and we'll get started on that one.
Yes, absolutely. This is, I think, the perfect time for people to pick up this book and start reading it. So once they complete Learn Microsoft Power BI, by the time they've completed it, you would release the next edition of Mastering Power BI. So great timing to pick up your book. And just in case you're not sure of it, I would highly advise this. Check out the landing page of the book. A colleague of mine has added the link in the comments. So this is the landing page of the book, and you can just enter your email address over here and get a sample chapter. So chapter one would be out to you within 24 hours, and then you can just read through it, and then you can be sure whether you want the book or not. And I wanted to talk about this, Greg. So you mentioned over here on the cover includes additional resources. What are these additional resources?
Yeah, so that was kind of interesting. So what I learned about Learn Power BI Second Edition is there were people that were using it as a textbook um, for college courses and that sort of thing, which would really kind of surprise
Uh-huh.
me. So what I wanted to do with this edition and they would ask questions like, are there any PowerPoints or anything that we can, for learning purposes, for lectures and that sort of thing. And there really wasn't at all for Learn Power BI Second Edition. So with the third edition, I created a PowerPoints for every chapter that you could learn as a lesson materials and that. And then I will also, it's taken a little more longer time to get this done than I wanted, but there's the preview feature of on object interactions. And so I wanted to put together a video on, because the book doesn't cover on object interactions because it's a preview feature and it's not really the default of how people interact with Power BI once you install it. But some people use it. And so I wanted to create some materials around, hey, this is how you do this with on object interactions and that sort of thing. So that's taking a little bit longer, but all the presentations, the PowerPoints are out there. It includes like all the chapter questions and then kind of the highlights of each chapter, so that you can use those in lesson materials and that. So, and it's also if you want to get the highlights of each chapter, then you can just review the PowerPoint and there you go.
Brilliant. And you could also, well, there's also online reading access. And then on our website, there's AI Assistant who would answer your questions as you read along. And if you have any further queries, just join the Discord. The book has Discord links throughout the book. Just join the Discord server, and then you can ask your questions over there. One of us from the team will pick it up and get your questions across to Greg, who would answer them for you. So, yeah. So one of many, many reasons to pick up the book. So, Greg, we are still waiting for people to ask their questions, but I think you briefly covered and you spoke about Fabric and Copilot and that you use in the book. So, how do these change the way people should think about BI in today's life, especially with generative AI and LLMs? How does Fabric and Copilot change using Power BI?
That's a good question. I mean, I don't know if Fabric changes things so much because there was already Databricks and Snowflake and those kind of systems out there. It is interesting in terms of Microsoft has built this completely integrated platform and stack that includes Power BI. So it does change things in terms of there's a lot more you can do within Power BI quote Fabric. But I think the bigger change is, and I'm not sure if Copilot is necessarily, the piece that's going to change everything, but the agentic AI stuff, I think, changes the game tremendously. I've been I've been following people like Brian Julius, is really big into that space, and it's interesting in terms of playing with like Plotly Studio. It's like, well, I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see where AI takes BI and analysis because, even to the point that is Power BI even hurt by it in the future because, people just want an answer, right? People in business, they just, like, what are my sales? Are they up? Are they down? But they just want the answers, right? And we build these semantic models in Power BI and put these visuals and these dashboards together. It's a lot of work in order to answer these questions. Whereas in the future, it could be just as simple as the user just jumps onto Claude or Chat GPT or whatever it is and says, "What are my sales?" And it just gives them the answer, right, that they're looking for. So that'll be. I don't think we're there yet. There's too many issues with AI and stuff like that, but if it ever gets to that point, then it'll be interesting to see where products like Power BI and that actually end up, in my opinion.
Thanks for that, Greg. We've got a query from Alexis on LinkedIn. Alexis inquires, I already have the second edition. Will I have a discount on the third edition?
You're gonna have
Uh,
to answer that one.
yeah, interesting. Good question, Alexis. I'll get the team to think about that. And what I would suggest is just go on the landing page that we spoke about, have a look at that, at least get your first free sample chapter. So this one that I spoke about, the link is already in the comment section. In case it's not there, if one of the team members is watching it, if they can add the link again, that would be great. And just add your email over here, so at least you would be part of the mailing list. So whenever the team decides to have a discount campaign on the book, at least you would receive that email and you'd be aware that you can now purchase the book on a discount. As of now, I'm not sure if there is any, but yeah, this is the best information that I can give. Yeah. So again, if you all have any queries, please add it in. Greg will answer them for you. I'll keep continuing, Greg. I have many questions to ask you. So while people are learning, what are the most common mistakes that you see Power BI users make, and how can it's a two-parter? How can you see how can they avoid them?
Yeah, I mean, so again, with I think keep it simple to begin with. One of the biggest mistakes that people make when they're first building this stuff out is they just too much. They put too much information on a page,
Mm,
and it's just too many visuals. They want to get, they want one page to answer all the questions, and it's a very easy
yeah.
trap to fall into. And that's one of the
Mm,
things that's one of the things in the book that in telling the story of Pam putting together this report that's I think is a little bit fake is that she one shots this report, right? So, she gets it right the
mm,
first time, and here's all the pages and big visuals and just the important visuals on the page. That's not how this works in real life, right? You'll put together a report and you'll get feedback from the business, and they'll tell you this, I don't like this, this is this is wrong, I want to be able to see it this way, right? And there's a back and forth that happens with these reports in the real world, right? So don't be afraid of that. Don't, just do your best, put it out there, and then get the feedback and improve it over time, right? So don't be afraid. Don't be afraid when you're first starting out to get things wrong.
true. I think overfitting has always been one of the problems, right? And as you rightly mentioned, the people want one report and they want to get it to do everything possible. I agree with that. Uh, I think we have another query from Andreas, but I think he's asked it twice. So let me pick up the second one because I think he's just corrected the language and then he's posted it again. So Andreas on LinkedIn inquires, generative AI will kill the dashboard industry. What happens? He's quoted that and he's probably highlighting that people talk about it. And what happens when business users skip Power BI, Tableau, and just ask ChatGPT for numbers? What are the current pain points that need to be resolved?
Yeah, I think
So what do you think?
it's an interesting point. It's probably not an if, it's a when, right? When does AI, generative AI, get to be that good? And is there, and this becomes like very interesting in terms of like Tableau. It's very interesting to me to watch the debates out there. Like Microsoft is betting very heavily that the semantic model is the savior of Power BI in an agentic AI world, and that the semantic
Mm,
model is what's going to make Power BI valuable. But I'm not sure I'm convinced that that's the case, and that that the semantic model, the analysis services tabular engine, and the DAX language, I'm not sure if that saves Power BI or not, or if basically it's all flat tables in Python code under the hood, and it's just all code and creating the answers. Because Plotly Studio is a great example of that.
yeah.
Where basically you can just feed it a flat table, have AI do the analysis on it, generate a bunch of Python code, generate the visuals. It's, I don't know. It's one of those things where you see that going on, and like, why wouldn't users want that over, hey, I have to spend all this time building a semantic model and then doing this and doing this and doing this, right? If users just want the answer, I mean, there's no better answer machine right now than generative AI. It is literally the answer machine, right?
It is, but how much do you validate your data as well? Because once you just turn it into generative AI, you will have to validate it as well, right? Like how much of the data has it picked up, how much has it forgotten. We are going there, but we don't know when will it be ready. Because I just take like the amount of data that you all of you work with is immense and massive. I don't work with that big amount of data, but I work with like probably sheets with hundreds of rows of data. And when I try to input that with ChatGPT and just try to optimize it or just get quick answers, it would just pick up probably the last set of 100 rows or the first set of 100 rows, or randomly it would pick up rows and it would just skip through a lot of them. So how do you verify that is also a massive problem.
Oh
So
yeah,
and it's probably we're getting there, but I don't think it's anytime soon.
yeah. It's going to be a while, but it'll eventually get there, I suppose. But it's just a matter of,
Yeah.
I don't know if it's going to be a decade or it's going to be, next week. Right? It
Yeah.
could be anywhere in between. So yeah, I don't think it's necessarily something to worry about right now because people are still having a lot of trust issues with AI, and deservedly so. Like you, sometimes you give it simple things to do, and it just totally massively screws it up. And there is some hallucination and other things that go on with the AI.
Mm.
But eventually those irons will get, those things will get ironed out, I assume. But yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting debate to watch.
True. And also, when I speak to about data scientists every day. So whenever you speak to data scientists, the majority of the job still revolves around cleaning data and all that basic things, right? And even when you speak to data analysts, they're still churning data and trying to extract insights out of it. So yeah, the between a week and a decade, as Greg suggested, whenever that happens, it would be a massive, massive change in the industry. So at least we've got a week to prepare from Greg's purview. But yeah, thanks a lot for that, Andreas. We've got another question from Alexis. So Alexis is the same person who spoke about the discount for the next edition of Learn Power BI. Now he's stuck between Learn Power BI second edition and DAX for Humans. He already has a background for Power BI. Which one should Alexis read first, according to you? Right.
So definitely learn Power BI. DAX for Humans is literally just about the DAX language. I mean,
Mm.
it has a very brief introduction to the desktop and loading up some data, but the data that it loads up is just really, really simple kind of data initially. Later on in the later chapters, it gets more complex, but I mean, Learn Power BI will take you through the entire life cycle, from the why you're doing this report in the first place to loading up the data, building a semantic model, star schema, and that creating, does cover a little bit of DAX, right? Covers a little bit of Power Query, and then building the reports out, the visuals, and everything else. So definitely that one is the first one book you should learn. And then if you want to delve deeper into DAX and really understand the DAX language in that, then DAX for Humans is perfect if you really want to go down that route. So.
Perfect. We've got another query. I think I was going to ask this at the later part, but since someone has already asked it, so Chris and Vale on YouTube inquires, what does future look like for Power BI in the next 5 years?
Wow, I mean, I could literally go. It just continues on this course, right? That it is on, or it could literally be a dead product in 5 years. I mean, it could. I mean, in all actuality, um, with the rise of AI and stuff like that, if AI gets to the point where I can just ask AI for the answer and it gives it to me, I'm maybe Power BI has a place in enterprises. It'll probably hang on for a long time, even after AI gets to the point where it'll just give you the answer. And the reason is just because of inertia, right? Just from simple inertia, businesses are used to using Power BI. They trust Power BI. Their data teams are trained in it. Their business analysts are trained in it. So just because of that, even if next week I can just ask AI for the answer and it'll give it to me and it's always right. Power BI 5 years from now will probably look kind of similar to what it does today, right? It'll keep on evolving in terms of feature functionality. I mean, the way that it's looking, it'll have 70 million preview features in 5 years, right? Because the team can't seem to get preview features out the door to GA, so they keep on building up. But other than that, I think it looks in 5 years, it looks pretty similar to what it looks like today, honestly.
Okay. Thanks a lot for that, Greg. We're almost at the midway mark, so let's do one thing. As the ticker is going on at the bottom, let's do one of our first giveaways. For people who are not aware, please read through the ticker at the bottom. We are doing a couple of giveaways today, one now and the other one towards the end. So please just comment hashtag packed in the comment section. And I'll just share my screen and then we will do the first one. Where is that? Up. Share screen. It's this one. And Greg, if you can just tell me when you can see my screen.
I can see your screen.
Can you see it?
Yep.
Okay, perfect. So that's the first draw. And let's see who's our winner. Shreya S on LinkedIn is the first winner of the giveaway. Congratulations, Shreya. If you can just get in touch with me or Greg, whoever you're connected to. If you're connected to me, that would be great. Just drop me a message on LinkedIn and please share your email address. And congrats, I'll get the ebook shared with you as soon as you share the details with me. So yeah, congrats once again, Shreya. And let's move ahead. We've got a couple of more queries in. Ayush Goyal on LinkedIn inquires, what is your view on the future of Plotly Studio? In your consulting experience, have there been projects where you preferred using Plotly Studio over Power BI?
So that's an interesting question. So yeah, I mean, as I'm more of a user of these products. I do some consulting around Power BI. It's very spotty though. It's actually not I don't run the data practice for the company that I work for. That's a whole different team and division that does that. I help them out sometimes when they have like some big Power BI projects because I kind of know that product a bit, right? But I don't actually. That's my consulting team. It actually focuses on ERP systems. Is what I do. And we actually do use Power BI for that because it integrates really well with Microsoft Dynamics 365, which is what we do a lot within my practice. So I don't actually do a lot of Plotly Studio as far as consulting or anything like that. I've been kicking the tires on it personally to see what it's all about and been following people on LinkedIn like Brian Julius and other people that have been using it. But yeah, in my consulting, I don't use Plotly Studio or anything around it because I don't get involved in data projects very much, and only when it's Power BI related. But I'm following it pretty closely, and it's an interesting. I think it's an interesting system, and potentially even the future of where all of this BI stuff goes.
1629. Great. I think we've got an interesting question from Mrunal on LinkedIn. He's keeping a track of all the books that you've written, and he's asking for a proper roadmap from you, the author. So, what's the right roadmap to ace Power BI? Like first learn DAX, then mQuery, then visuals, and how much time should one invest to ace it? And does the book cover it all? Now you've got all the books for them. You've got a book on Power Query M, you've got a book on DAX, you've got a book on Power BI, in fact, two, learning and mastering. So what would be the right roadmap?
I mean, the right roadmap, in my opinion, is following the Learn Power BI and how it presents out the information, because it basically gives you the blueprint for learning Power BI. After you've gone through that, and you know, like, why am I creating reports and how do I gather information and like what's important to gather in terms of requirements and that sort of thing. The rest of it really boils down to what is your need, right? I think Power Query M is probably a later thing if you want to learn like Power Query beyond beyond what the user interface provides, because the Power Query editor user interface is probably one of the best pieces of Power BI, in my opinion. It's amazing to me how well that interface, that UI is designed and presented in terms of giving you access to just an incredible amount of power in terms of data transformation where you don't need to jump into the code. I mean, to me, I think the people that put together the Power Query Editor are probably some of the smartest people at Microsoft in the Power BI team. They just did an incredible job with that. So I would almost like save the M code for later, because you're probably not going to need it for a while to be able to write your own M code. I would definitely probably you're going to need to know some DAX, and probably, me, in terms of, I really love the DAX language. I love seeing what I can do with DAX. I probably put it as a higher priority than probably most. Probably the biggest thing that you need to do, which is something I'm bad at, to be perfectly honest, is learn, and something I learned from Nick Debra in his practical charts books, is learn how to present the data visually and effectively. I think that's probably one of the biggest pieces to the whole thing, right? Is if you can do all the calculations you want in DAX, and you can do all the data transformation you want. If you can't present a story and present the data in an appealing way, and in a way that makes sense to people, then you've lost, right? So I think that's probably the biggest, most important thing to learn about Power BI, is how to create effective dashboards and reports and visuals. Start with creating an effective visual. And I'm bad at it. I'm better at it now, because I've read Nick Debra's practical charts books. So now I have some sense of what I'm doing, in terms of the visualization, and that way better than I did before. So yeah, I think that's a huge gap. If you don't ace that piece of it, then nothing else matters. Nothing else matters.
Thanks for that, Greg. Ronald, do have a look at the landing page that I shared earlier. Uh, just take your chance with a free sample chapter. And then if you like the sample chapter, go for the book. I think the sample chapter covers a lot of ground for an introductory chapter. And the preface would also be a part of that sample chapter that you receive. So you would be aware of what's coming up next in the book. Yeah, if you like the teaser, go for it. And yeah. Andreas is confirming, is there a second chance? Anyway, here it is back. Yes, there is. We've just done one giveaway. So yes, people, please continue commenting #packed. We'll do one towards the end. I don't want to do it right now and disrupt discussions, but we'll definitely do one before we close the session. Alex says on LinkedIn inquires, will the Learn Power BI book be enough to pass the PL 300, or is there a special book for that?
So it's an interesting question. So I've actually seen some people talking about using they've had a really good success with mastering Power BI second edition, and studying that and having that help them pass the PL 300 exam. In fact, I think Brian Julius actually built a custom LMS or whatever that he trained on mastering Power BI, and then had ChatGPT write a PL 300 study guide, like an app, or maybe it was Claude Code, I don't remember, but he used Mastering Power BI as the basis of it, and then created an app with generative AI to basically be able to study for the PL 300. And so I thought that was really cool. So yeah, I think Learn Power BI would definitely get you the basics of it. But most of the people that I've seen talking about the PL 300 are like, yeah, man, just study Mastering Power BI and you're good. Because Mastering Power BI is really gets way more into the weeds than Learn Power BI does. Learn Power BI tries to keep it simple, because it's meant for people that are just starting out with Power BI. So, yeah.
I hope that answers your question, Alexis. Yeah, Mastering Power BI. Currently, the second edition is out. Have a look at that, and even that's written by Greg. So yeah. By the way, Mrunal and all the others, my colleague Apeksha has added the link to the landing page in the comment section. Please have a look at that. It was the same landing page that I was showcasing earlier. Yeah, have a look at that, and it'll probably help you. And I'll just share that link in the chat for all the YouTube users as well who are online. By the way, Andreas goes on to say further that I totally agree with you on Power Query Editor. It is really well done. The advanced editor is my go-to feature. ChatGPT is really good at mQuery. What's your advice on how to use AI for generating mQueries?
So that's interesting. So what I've mainly used, in this case, ChatGPT is kind of my go-to. what I've had very good success using ChatGPT to create custom connectors. So if you know anything about custom connectors, they're all also written in the M language, and they're not trivial. They're not trivial to create, because one, you have to understand everything there is about how the API that you're trying to connect to works. So you have to read up on all of that, and then you have to know how to create a Power Query custom connector, which is very different than coding pretty much anything else with, that you're ever going to do with M. But I've had really good success. I can point ChatGPT to, hey, here's the documentation for the API. Now go write me a Power Query custom connector to do it. And it doesn't necessarily one-shot it, but it gets it close enough that it's just a few tweaks and you can have it do it for you. And you're like, it takes something that would typically would take me like an entire weekend to write a custom connector for like a custom API that was out there. And with ChatGPT, I can get it done in like an hour or two. So yeah, use it. It's really good at DAX as well. If you use something like Tabular Editor 2, you can export the BIM file from your Power BI semantic model, and it has all the information you ever want to know about that semantic model. You upload that to ChatGPT, and you ask it questions on how to write your DAX code, and it's amazing how good it is once you give it, the information and the context behind your semantic model. So yeah, absolutely use these tools. They're huge time savers.
Given the integration of Copilot with Microsoft and its products, wouldn't it be easier to do all of these things and integrate AI with Power BI with Copilot for any users? I'm just inquiring. I haven't used it.
Yeah, to this day, I'll be perfectly honest. It's like I don't get the same level of answers out of Copilot a lot of times that I get out of just using raw GPT, and I don't know why that is, quite honestly. Because it's supposed to be the same engine under the hood. They're making calls, but there's something that Microsoft's doing with Copilot where I don't know. I have more luck just using just straight Chat GPT or Claude Code, if you will. It just seems like I get better responses, and I don't know why. But yes, I mean, Copilot, I don't use it a ton because I use ChatGPT. But yes, if you can use the other thing that the problem with Copilot in a lot of cases for a lot of people is that Microsoft has kind of locked it behind the Fabric wall. So they make Copilot available free in Excel, right? And it's free in Word, and you have all this. But in Power BI, to use Copilot, you have to have a Fabric instance, which is at least $300 a month, right? Even for the low end of, just a pay-as-you-go F2. Right. And so, it's unfortunate that they've done that. I think people would use, like me, I would use it more if I didn't have to have a Fabric instance to go against, which I actually do have one for the company that I work with, so I can use it. But but I keep my work and my personal stuff very separate. So I don't mix the two, right? So if the Power BI for me is a personal thing, it's something I do in my own time. So I'm not going to pay $300 just to be able to use Copilot when I can just jump over to ChatGPT and just ask it my question and get the answer, right? So I think Microsoft has really screwed that up, in my opinion. So
hopefully they get that resolved in the years to come. But so Ayush has another question on LinkedIn. For someone who has built an enterprise, expertise. Someone who's built an expertise reading your books for a few years now in Power BI, where do you think the next opportunities in BI lie?
That's a good question. Something that I think of, and it's something that I have not done but I think about where to go with BI and stuff like that, is I think really what you should do is you should build industry expertise. And it's something I've not really done a lot of in my career until really the tail end of my career right now, where I've gotten into ERP and building up some expertise around manufacturing and things like that, manufacturers and that sort of thing. But I think that's the real opportunity for once you learn the basics of BI and business analytics and reporting, building up that additional layer of being specialized in a particular industry and knowing what that industry cares about, what the metrics are in that industry, all of that sort of stuff, I think is hugely valuable and is something that can differentiate you within the market if you're looking for your next job and that sort of thing, and will command higher salaries. And it's something I should have covered more in when I was talking about the career advice and that sort of. I think I covered it a little bit in Learn Power BI when I was talking about the career advice and specialization and that. But I think specialization is hugely important. Like learn an industry, even to the point of like not just manufacturing, like home building, for example. Like I've worked with a home builder on some, and it's really fascinating working with them, and you see what, how their data is. It's completely different than most other things that I've worked with, right? It's just really interesting to be able to dig in and look at that data. So yeah, I mean, that's where I would go with that. I would look into specialize in within an industry and really just know that industry inside and out.
Interesting that you would bring up industries, Greg. In fact, my next question was going to be on that. So, which industries or use cases do you think are underutilizing Power BI's potential right now?
Yeah. So I would say, and it's really, again, I brought up the home builder. The industries that I think that are underutilizing reporting in general in that is anything that involves like manual labor and that sort of thing. So literally, when I first started working with this home builder, they were, they had to justify doing anything around a data warehouse or anything like that. They couldn't justify building a data warehouse. So what we did was we're like, oh, well, we'll build a quick semantic model in Power BI to prove out the value, right? Because the business was like, we swing hammers for a living, right? This is their attitude. We don't need all this fancy reporting stuff and all of this other thing. So what we did was they had a meeting that they would do every week where they would go through every house that was in development, right? And every piece of parcel of land that was in development. And they're pulling information from like financials and this and that and all this data, and they would take the entire day to do this meeting, right? Because then the people are pulling information in from like 12 different systems. So what we did was we wired up and created a semantic model that pulled all that information together and presented out like a single pane of glass. Here's everything that you know about each what the status is of each parcel of land, each home building project. And it took that meeting and shrank it down to like 2 hours, right? And they were like, and then the business was all like, oh, this is the greatest thing ever. Let's do more of this, right? So I think any industry that sees themselves, and manufacturers fall into this trap a lot as well. Any industry that sees themselves as kind of the more manual effort and that sort of thing, that they don't need it. I think it's very common in industries like home building, like manufacturing, those kind of industries. I think it's very common to have that kind of attitude about reporting and business analytics. So those are the ones in my experience that I've seen that have underutilized it.
Yeah, there's a massive case study even here in the UK about NHS using Power BI and how they ended up streamlining data integration and real-time analysis and reporting and patient care. It ended up improving their care industries, operational efficiency. And this is not now, that's like a few years ago, quite a few years ago. But yeah, so I remember that as well. So I have one last query, and after that we'll do the last giveaway. And if anyone has any queries, please feel free to add it now. This would be your time to add your queries in, if there was any. So, do you have any favorite dashboards or reports, Greg, that you've built that you could share a story about here with everyone?
Yeah, the one I think that was what was most interesting that I remember is I was actually doing, it was for a nonprofit, and I was doing it for for free. It was actually happened to be a church, and they wanted to keep track of who's coming to their sermons and who's coming to the volunteer activities, and what they are in terms, how are they tithing and all this other stuff. It was fascinating to me. One that that I never even thought of that as a use case, for reporting and analytics. Was number one, and the second one was that there were some really hard problems to solve. And it actually is the origin of I talk about no calculated DAX, and there have been a lot of debate within the community about that. Even people are like, well, you can't use no calculate for this, and there have been challenges around no calculate, which have all been solved. But I actually found one where using calculate was faster than not using a no calculate approach. It's the only one that I've really found that for whatever reason, and the issue is trying to see, well, who showed up on this date that didn't show up on this date. And it's a really hard problem to solve in DAX, and to do it efficiently. But and so I've got blog articles about it. That's actually the origin, is working with that nonprofit around some of their data problems. That's where that comes from. So that's one of my favorites.
Amazing. Thanks a lot for that, Greg. I think, yeah, I don't have any more questions, but Ayush says, after your advice about the expertise, but awesome advice, very grateful, thank you. And Runal is getting an internal server error while creating an account. Apeksha, if you're online, if you can just contact Runal and help him out, that would be great. Let's do our final giveaway for everyone else. Here's your second chance. And where is my screen? Here it is.
Yep,
So I'm clicking on draw again. Perfect. Let's see who the second winner is. All the best, everyone. Savitri Banka on YouTube. So great. We've got one on LinkedIn and one on YouTube this time. Congratulations, Savitri. If you can get in touch with me on LinkedIn or with someone from the team on LinkedIn, that would be great. It's very easy to find me on LinkedIn. Just type my full name, Tushar Gupta, and just add back to it and you will find me. So yeah, congratulations to both the winners. Just get in touch with me on LinkedIn and share your email address. I'll get the ebook shared with you. We have one last question before we wrap up, Greg. I can see a query coming quickly from Ayush. We'll take that. So Ayush inquires, what are your thoughts on Microsoft MVP program? You're an ideal MVP, but all I see your LinkedIn is MVP. What is MVP? I'm not sure.
Oh boy, I gotta determine how honest I want to be with this question. So MVP is most banned professional. So I was a member of the MVP program for like 7 years. They kicked me out of that program. We won't go in. They never let me know why. But like I have my suspicions. So being a part of the MVP program was really interesting experience for me. And I wrote mostly about what I felt about the MVP program is in a blog article called "Confessions of a Disgraced Former MVP," which would be myself, right? And that's tongue in cheek, right? It's an interesting dynamic that goes on within the MVP program. It's really, and this is all my opinion, so I don't want to offend all the MVPs and stuff like that, but I was a member of it for 7 years, so I saw it from the inside, right? It's a marketing program, really. It's really a genius thing by Microsoft in that they get to cherry pick like who they deem as like being experts, right? Being like and then like the sources of authority, if you will, within the community. And then they designate them as the MVP and like, oh, these are the people you should listen to. But really, it's just marketing, right? It's just they're controlling the narrative around their products. It's a genius program. But that's really how I view the MVP program. It's just Microsoft controlling the narrative. And the interesting thing about it is, if you think about it, is like, should those people be the authorities? Like the people that are like the authorities on DAX, are they the MVPs, or is it Jeffrey Wang, the guy that literally invented the DAX language, right? But Jeffrey Wang isn't a content creator. Like I think, like on his blogs, he's got like in the last 10 years, he's got like 8 blog entries, right? He's not a content creator, so he can't be an MVP, right? Because all the MVPs they're just content creators for the most part. And you have to be in order to become an MVP. All Microsoft cares about, you have to fill out these long forms about everything that you've done for the community, and then how many followers you have, or how many views you have on this blog, or how many subscribers you have. It's all about how much influence do you wield within the community. But here's the piece that's not, and I say all of this in that blog article. Here's the piece that I don't say, And again, I'm probably saying way too much, but you asked the question, so here it is. It's all kind of fake. In terms of Microsoft wants to these MVPs to feel like they have some kind of input and they're valuable, but they're just trying to make them feel that way. And this is again, this is all my opinion. And like what you say as an MVP doesn't actually the feedback that you give back to the product teams and that sort of stuff. One, it's extremely rare that you get to do any of that, and two, it doesn't seem to really matter. Like you can give feedback, you can talk and give feedback all you want, but the product team is going to do what the product team does, right? Because again, you got to look at it from their perspective, right? They literally do this for a living. All the MVPs are just these people that don't do this for a living critiquing what they're doing, right? Like they're not going to take that. They're not going to take that very well, because they do it for a living. So anyway, I probably said way too much, but the question was asked, and I tend to be.
I think you summed it up really well. Yeah. It is pretty honest, Greg, but yeah, I think you summed it up well. Like for the product team, they actually sandwich, right? Being a part of the product team myself, you sandwich between the community and your management both. So your management needs certain outcomes, your community needs some certain deliverables. You can't deliver both. You have to pick and choose. So unfortunately, it is a frustration of the product team, and it is completely understandable. Well, to each their own. It is their product. It is their platform. Yeah, so they choose to do it that way. So yeah, no complaints over there. And thanks everyone for all the queries, for being a part. Savitri and Shweta, I believe the first one was. If you all can just get in touch with me, that would be fab. And any closing notes, any closing thoughts from you, Greg, before we wrap it up?
No, I think I probably said enough. I appreciate the opportunity to come on. I appreciate everybody asking questions. And yeah, what you see is what you get with me. So there you go. I'm this way in real life as well.
Yeah. And before I just wrap it up, I would just like to throw an open question on the floor. Uh, if you would like to see probably a classroom live session, not like this, like an Ask Me Anything session, like a live session where Greg could come on and just show you how to use DAX or Power Query M or Power BI, any topic as such, if you think that would be a great idea, just post a comment and just say yes or no. Just tell us that yes, it would be a good idea, or please don't even think about it. It's the worst idea possible. Just give us some feedback, and we would probably try and do something and try to convince Greg to do a classroom session for all of you. So, but on the other note, thank you everyone for attending. Uh, until next time. Cheers. Bye.
Yeah.